Each year, Palestinians observe Nakba Day on May 15th, the day the nation of Israel was reborn. Palestinians call it the Catastrophe. Yesterday, Arab protesters stormed the Syrian-Israeli border, resulting in 16 people being killed. The Mideast peace process continues to be at a standstill. We'll discuss it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. You may sometimes wonder why we talk so much about the Middle East and the drive for peace in the Middle East, but there's a very good reason why. One of the greatest prophecies of our era hinge on what will develop between the Palestinians and the Israelis. There's a prophecy that when there is a peace agreement reached, either between Israel and the international community or between Israel, the Palestinians, and the international community, whenever an agreement is reached, if it provides for the internationalization of the Temple Mount, the sharing of the Temple Mount as a place of worship, and if it is put under international control, that event will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon. Not only the Battle of Armageddon, but the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. So when we see things boiling in Israel and in the Middle East, we have to pay attention, because this event could conceivably occur over the next 3 or 4 months. Already, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinians, says that the Palestinians will declare a Palestinian state by September if they don't get a negotiated deal before then. They plan to go to the United Nations and ask the UN to recognize the sovereignty of the Palestinian state and to recognize it within 1967 borders. Well, that would drive Israel back to be 9 miles wide at the waist. That would take away 300,000 Jews from living under Israeli population. It would have a big effect. So the whole world is watching. People in Israel are very concerned because they see the world opinion building against them. Ehud Barak, the defense minister of Israel, calls it the coming tsunami that's going to hit Israel by September. Now, September, 4 months away. So we're not talking about something way off in the distance here. Let's go over what happened yesterday. May the 15th is a very important day in the nation of Israel and to the Palestinians. Actually, it was on May the 14th that Israel declared herself a nation. May the 15th is when the war broke out, that ultimately Israel won. Everybody thought Israel would lose the war. Israel only had about 600,000 people in the Holy Land at the time, whereas the Arabs had closer to 42 million. So the odds were so overwhelming that everyone just assumed that this fledgling nation would be driven into the sea before it could actually even get off the ground. But it didn't work that way. Due to some miraculous interventions and due to the valor of the Israeli people who had nothing to go back to except Hitler's concentration camps, the Israelis fought for their very existence. Consequently, when the armistice was declared in 1949, Israel had not only survived, but had actually gained territory during the conflict that had been precipitated by the Arabs. Now, let's make sure we understand one thing that had happened here. All of this was brought about by the United Nations. The United Nations had decided to partition the Holy Land. The world community felt so guilty because of the 6 million Jews that had been marched away to the Nazi concentration camps, that they just felt like a homeland had to be established for the Jewish people. The Jewish people had not had a homeland since 70 A.D. So we're talking about, 1,878 years. They had been sifted through the nations. 1,878 years. Think about this. 1,878 years. They had been filtered through the nations. And yet, amazingly, they had retained their identity. How could it even happen? One reason. Because they did observe the commandment of God that they were not to intermarry with other nationalities. That allowed them, since they continued Jew to marry Jew, as for the most part, that allowed them to retain their distinct identity over this 1,878-year period. Furthermore, there was a promise from God in the Bible that even though he scattered them, he would someday bring them back again. It's the famous Ezekiel boneyard prophecy of Ezekiel chapter number 37. Ezekiel saw the bones, the house of Israel, and it says right there in the chapter, this is the house of Israel. But the Lord told him, prophesy, and the bones which were just scattered out there, legs, arms laying everywhere, as he began to prophesy in the vision, bone came against bone, joint came against joint. And then finally, after the skeletons were properly recreated, then they stood up on their feet. Sinew came upon the bone, flesh came upon the sinew, and then as Ezekiel continued to prophesy, the breath of God entered into them, and the nation was reborn. It's a prophecy of the rebirth of the nation of Israel. It came to pass. Well, the partition happened in November of 47, according to the UN edict. That's when the vote was taken, but Israel declared independence on May the 14th of 1948. The Arabs launched the war against the nation the next day. Now, the United Nations had said, we need to create a homeland for Israel and a homeland for the Palestinians. So they deliberated where the borders should be. And they gave a little tiny area to the nation of Israel, even smaller than Israel was after the 1948 war. They gained a little bit of territory in the 1948 war. Well, then in 1967, when the Arabs picked another fight, then Israel gained more territory all the way from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. Okay, now the Palestinians contend we need our land back. Now, there's a real thing you got to watch here, because this was never Palestinian land. There were scattered Arabs living on the land, just like there were scattered Jews living on the land. But the partition that now then the Palestinians like to claim is what the United Nations tried to give them, and they refused and said, no, we're going to war. So now then they're trying to return to those borders that the United Nations gave them originally, which they refused, which Israel accepted. Israel accepted, the Arabs rejected, and launched a war against the nation of Israel, which Israel then won. Okay, now let's wind the tape ahead, 63 years or so till today, from 1948. Here we are now. We are in 2011. Yesterday was Nakba Day. It was the day of the catastrophe. Each year, the Palestinians and the Arabs in general like to demonstrate and to remind everyone our land is occupied. The Jewish people are holding us in captivity. We need to be set free. Well, with everything coming down within the next 4 months possibly, they wanted to make sure that they made this statement loud and clear. So they surprised Israel. What they did, they got together a surprise invasion of Israel by unarmed people. You know, this method is now sweeping the globe. If you get enough people together, they just start marching and dare anyone to shoot them. Well, that's what they did. The people from Syria, several thousand, began to march toward Israel, and they actually were able to breach the border and take over a couple of villages in northern Israel for a short period of time. Well, it took the Israeli security forces, the Israeli soldiers, by surprise. They didn't want to shoot them, and yet what do you do when you have an invasion on your hands? So it ended up in the conflict. About 16 people died. I don't know for sure who shot whom, but nevertheless, about 16 people died yesterday. Israel did not expect this to occur, but it had been secretly organized through Facebook, through Twitter, and all those wonderful tools that sometimes can be misused. Well, that all happened. Okay, now, that was Nakba Day. That was yesterday, the catastrophe. At least the catastrophe for the Palestinians. And, of course, the rebirth of the nation of Israel was a marvelous day for the Jewish people, and they are celebrating Jewish Independence Day at this present time. So while Jews celebrate, the Palestinians and the Arabs mourn. Okay, now, what else is going on here? Because the prophecy states that there will be some kind of an agreement. The world community will be involved, and they will finally reach an agreement. It appears they will reach some kind of a settlement, whether it's imposed by the world community or whether Israelis and Palestinians finally agree. Well, because of this threat of the Palestinians to go to the United Nations in September and ask the UN to recognize a sovereign Palestinian state within 1967 borders. So they're going to ask the world community to vote where the borders should be. Now, the United Nations passed a resolution 242 and Resolution 338, that borders had to be determined by negotiation. Now the Palestinians are asking them, set that aside and let's let the world community determine. The reason they want to do this, because the Palestinians have the sympathy of most of the world community. Israel gets outvoted at the UN every single time. There's still a lot of anti-Semitism throughout the world. So the Palestinians feel confident that they can win the day if they can get a vote to happen. However, the General Assembly of the United Nations does not have the final voice. That lies with the UN Security Council. And on the UN Security Council is Israel's best friend, at least to lately, and hopefully still, the United States of America. The United States of America is one of the 5 nations that has veto power that can stop this whole thing dead in its tracks. Well, the U.S., seeing this coming after the Palestinians made this statement they were going to do this, the U.S. put out the word, we are not in favor of a unilateral declaration of a state by the United Nations. We are against this notion, and the U.S. has rallied many of its powerful friends, such as Germany, such as Great Britain, to say we are not for this declaration of statehood either. We believe this has to be done by negotiations. Well, now then, Abbas has gotten together with Haniyeh of Hamas, and they've now reunited. They're actually negotiating the terms of their new government in Egypt over the weekend. So they're supposed to be taking power at any moment now, and they're going to have their own Palestinian government. So those are some of the things that are out there. We're going to take your calls, your questions today on the program. The number to call, 877-END-TIME.
Endtime Ministries presents End of the Age, a 30-minute commercial-free TV show hosted by Irvin Baxter. Every Monday, End of the Age airs on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. On End of the Age, Irvin depicts how modern issues like an establishment of a one-world government, the religion of Islam, a coming World War III, and more line up so clearly with Bible prophecies written over 2,000 years ago. To get tomorrow's news today, be sure to tune into End of the Age every Monday on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Visit endtime.com for more details or call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
The Bible prophesies about 4 great spirits which control